and welcome to Kaswell's Kappa, the channel where you learn how to work on your Kappa step by step. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to replace your battery on the Saturn Sky. There are two different ways of doing this, which I'll mention later in the video. Today we're going to do the Fender method. Later on, I'll be doing a battery replacement on a Pontiac Solstice. And in that video, I'll show you how to do the liner method or the wheelhouse method. But in this video, we'll do the Fender method. So depending on which way you would prefer, or if you want to see how both of them goes and choose for yourself, you can check that one later on when I produce and release that video. But other than that, I'll give you pages for the service manual, show you how to do this step by step, show you the tools that you need, and pretty much everything you need to do to complete this procedure. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so where is the battery located? Well, if we took a look at our passenger side, behind this fender, our battery is located right here. And sure enough, there it is. Now, there are two ways to remove this fender. Two ways to remove the battery. One involves the fender, one involves the wheel well. Personally, I prefer the fender method. Personally, other people prefer the wheel method. Both methods are viable. Both methods are split about evenly down the middle on who likes what. I like doing the fender method because to me it's a lot less labor. You remove the two bolts up front, a bolt in the back. There's two bolts on the bottom, and then whatever's connected to the wheel well. Take those out, undo the battery connection, and slide it out. Put everything back on, and you're done. A lot of people don't like that method because it involves having to align the fender back in the correct spot. And if you don't do it right, your door can clip the fender, and that's not good. That's why a lot of people don't like that method. The reason some people enjoy doing the wheel method is they don't have to jack with the fender. But what you do is you lift the vehicle, you take the wheel off, you undo the wheel well, and then you undo the bar in there, and you can just slide the battery right out through that way, and then put everything back on, of course. But of course, I hate taking the wheel off, I hate lifting the vehicle. Too much damage has occurred to these vehicles enough already to where I detest lifting the vehicle in any type of way. So if I can avoid it, I can. So that's why I do the fender method. But of course, you can do it either way. But today I'm going to showcase the fender method. So let's get to it. Now, in order to remove the fender, there's several bolts we have to remove. The first two are located up top. There's one on the left side of the fender, and there's another on the right side, right here. These are both 7mm bolts. The next bolt to remove would be behind here, but as you can see, if we can focus here, it would be right there, but mine's missing, as well as a portion of my fender. That's because whoever owned this car before me, they didn't take very good care of it. So I'm missing that piece, and I'm missing that bolt. I believe that bolt's a 10mm bolt, but I cannot tell you for sure. But next will be that bolt hidden behind here. Next, there are 4 more bolts inside the wheel well. It's best if you turn your wheel towards the passenger side as if you're turning right, so that these are more accessible. So there's one down here on the very bottom. There's going to be one here, which I'm missing, a second here, and then a fourth up top, connecting to the top of the fender. So once all 4 of those are removed, you're done with this side. And these are all, once again, 7mm sockets. Next will be underneath the fender. There's 3 bolts. You have one here. This is a 10mm bolt. You have one here. Where's it at? One here. This connects to your wheel liner. This is a 7mm bolt. And then you have this one down here, another 10mm bolt. All 3 of these need to be removed and set these to the side. Once all of the bolts are removed, be careful, but simply take your fender and lift it out of place. Alright, now with the fender out of the way, as we can see, we have a clear view of our battery, but we still have something in the way. We still have the frame to the fender here. We can't really lift the battery up and slide it out because the frame's a little too low. You can't slide it out this way because the frame of the vehicle is in the way, and there's a little lip here, so you can't just slide it out straight. So we do have to remove this, and this is the main reason most people don't like doing this procedure with the fender method, is because if this is off, then the fender's off. And if the fender's off, you got to take the fender off, then you got to remove this, or move it around, and then put the fender back on. I think it's a little hassle. I don't mind it. So now we can go to removing this. There's a little nut back here, you can see. This is a 10mm nut. It's connected to this bar, and then there's two bolts. One is right here, connected to this frame, and then the other one is this bottom one right here. This top one, I believe, is for the door, so don't touch that. It's going to be this one right here. So that here, and then that here. So the bottom of both of these two. So now let's go to removing those bolts. Alright, now that this screw is out, I'm going to remove these two bolts here, one there, and then of course the one on the bottom fell. For this piece here, you need to slide up, and it will slide out. As you can see, there's a little hole right here, and then there's a little thread right here. So it almost acts like a hinge at times. This is also another method people call the swing method. They leave the fender on. All they do is they take off the bolts for the frame, and they swing out the frame itself so that they can get to the battery. That is the third method. It's a lot less known, and it's also a lot less liked because that requires even more work and more labor. So now that this is out, we have a clear view of our battery, and we can take it out now. Alright, now whenever it comes to removing the battery, we first need to remove the battery cables from the terminals. These are both 10mm sockets, and whenever you remove the cables, remove the negative first and then the positive. If you do it the other way around, it can mess up the electrical systems and you can damage the ECM. So first off, the negative terminal, set that to the side, and then the positive terminal, and there you go, set that to the side. I'll set it right here. So now that both of these are removed, we can move on to our battery hold down. I believe this is a 13mm socket. I have to grab one of those. So next we'll be removing that. Now to remove the battery hold down, this is a 13mm socket. Take that, remove it. Take the block, take that, set that to the side, and now our battery is completely free. We just need to grab it like so and remove it. Alright, now we have our new battery in, so what we need to do here, we need to get some dielectric grease, and we want to make sure we grease the terminals here. Get a little dab here. We want to make sure that the terminals are covered in a nice thin film. You don't want too much, but you don't want too little. Cover it in a nice layer of dielectric grease. So we got these terminals nice and lubed up. I may have done a little bit too much on there. Let's move some of that over here. And now that the terminals are nice and lubed up, we're going to grab our positive and negative cable here. If you have the covers on, you're going to want to remove those, just like so. Now it's not necessarily a need to grease these, but I like to do it anyways because these are known to rust, especially the terminals themselves. And the reason I do this is this prevents rust, because the last thing you want is for this to rust, and then next thing you know, you can't tighten it down. So here we're going to cover it in dielectric grease, and then I'll do the negative cable, and then we can get to the rest of attaching the cables and the battery hold down. Alright, now that our terminals and our cables are all greased up, we can now tighten down the battery hold down. This is 25 Newton-pounds or 18 foot-pounds of torque. So you're going to grab your torque wrench here, and we're going to torque it on. Just like so, and that's torqued down. Now that our battery hold down is on, we're going to apply our cables. Remember, positive first, then negative. If you swap the order and do negative first and then positive, the electricity will flow throughout the vehicle in a manner it's not supposed to, and it could mess up the electronics, and then you're pretty much out of luck there, because then your ECM could be screwed, and there's going to be a hard time replacing that. So, positive then negative. So we take our positive cable, make sure it's fully seated, take your negative cable, And what I'll do is I'll kind of tap it, see if I hear a spark, which, yep, there's a spark. Make sure that's fully seated. And then whenever you torque these down, it's 17 Newton meters or 13 foot-pounds of torque. All right, next, we're going to be attaching our frame. How I like to start is I like to take the hinge here. I'll slide it on. I'll take my 10mm bolt that we took out of the frame, and I'll slide it into its slot down here. So that the top portions are done, or at least they're in place, and then I'll take my final nut or bolt and I will get that lined up. So now this is on, and all I have to do is tighten them up and get it to where it was last so that I can get it aligned properly. Alright, next we're going to be torquing all three of these bolts on. They're all 20 Newton meters or 15 foot-pounds of torque. So we're going to get this torqued on here. Actually, it's this bottom one, I'm sorry. Alright, so that one's torqued down, and then we'll do it to all three of these, and this is how you're going to install the frame. Right, next, we're going to be installing our fender. Just take it. I like to start with the top and then the bottom. Slide it on, and then make sure the bottom's nice and in a good spot. Usually it'll go ahead, it'll hold itself on, so you don't have to worry about it falling like mine is here, so that you can make sure it's in a good spot and make sure your holes and your bolts are all lined up. And what I like to do as well is I'll come over to the door and I'll make sure that there's nothing too close, nothing too far, and nothing is messing up in that area. So now that that's aligned, I can get my bolts and I can start installing them and installing the fender. Alright, so now that all the bolts are torqued on, or hand tight I would say, I'm going to go ahead and see the alignment. And looks like we are golden. So now that that's golden, everything's good. Let's start her up and test it out. Alright, so now that we have the fender aligned and where we want to, I've also went ahead and installed all of our bolts and just had them snug to where I could get it in the place that I needed it to. So now that that's done, we can torque all of the bolts down. Remember, there's 2 up top. There's 4 on the right side of the wheel liner. Those are the 7mm sockets, or 7mm bolts. There's a single bolt on the inside of the fender, the inside left side, that is a 10mm I believe, but I don't have one, so I can't tell you that for sure. And then there are the 3 on the bottom. 2 of them are 10mm, 1 is a 7mm. All of the 7mm bolts, they're 10 Newton meters or 89 inch-pounds, and then the 2 bottom 10mm bolts, those are 20 Newton meters or 15 foot-pounds. I will go ahead and say this though, as far as the fender goes, it's fiberglass, it's really delicate, so I don't even do 10 Newton meters or 89 inch-pounds. I just do hand tight. So as you can see, I have a little small 1/4 inch wrench. I'm just going to take it and hand tighten it. That's it. I'm just going to get it snug because that's all it really needs. Just like that right there. It's snug there. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is we're going to make sure, once it's all tightened down, make sure the line in here is where it needs to be. It's not touching the door. It's not too far out, not too far in. And then we're going to close the hood here in a second and make sure that everything's all lined up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Alright, thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope that it helped you out and that you learned something new. I want to remind you to check out the Kaswell's Kappa Center. It can be found at kaswellskappa.wixsite.com. It's got all kind of information regarding the Kappa platform, whether it's the Saturn Sky, the Pontiac Solstice, the Opel GT, or the Daewoo G2X. A little hard to say. I got everything ranging from service manual pages to TSBs, bulletins, just a lot of good info on there. I would recommend you check it out. Alright, well that's all I have for y'all today, and be sure to catch me out next time. I'll see y'all then. Till then.